Hello, National Parents Union. Today is Friday, April 17th. This show, the segment of our show of our nightly restorative check-in is being recorded for you because of technology. What can I say? So I'm very, very happy and looking forward to our conversation with Otto Cocino. I cannot wait. We've been trying to have this conversation, I think, for 2 weeks now because technology interrupted us before and we were like, no, you will not interrupt us again. So Otto will be coming on. We made sure everything's working.
Hi.
Hello. I'm just so happy to see your face and hear your voice. Okay, so Otto, if you could just do us a favor, whatever you want to share as a way of introducing yourself.
Okay. So, so my name is Otto Cocino. I'm from National City, California, born and raised. And I am just here to be of service and to share and have a conversation with you. I have Latino background, have a mother and father passed away. I have six amazing brothers. And my family all lives here in National City, California. So happy to be here.
So there's 6 of you or there's 7 of you?
There's a lot of us. And so my mom and my dad, so my father passed away, but my mom remarried. And so we have this kind of Brady Bunch situation. So there's actually more than that. I believe he has 8 on his side and my mom has 5 on her side. And so it's kind of, it's a big family.
That is a big family.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. So Otto, how have you been?
I've been okay. I mean, I think this whole COVID-19 thing has been such a rude awakening, I think, for many of us. And for me in particular, I was actually in New York when the whole thing started. And so I moved back home from New York around the same time. And so for me, it just kind of had a different type of impact because I was there and a lot of my friends that are still there are on lockdown. We were on a Zoom call the other day and it really hit me when my friend broke down because she was living in Queens, but she moved to the Bronx and she was just broken down. Like her staff are sick. She knows people that are suffering, who've been infected. And it was just hard to see her kind of break down on that call, saying how tired and exhausted she was from actually living it every day. It's like, here in San Diego, it's affecting us as well, but at least I haven't seen it directly affect anyone that I know. And so it's different, right? When you have your own experience is kind of distant, yet we're still kind of affected because we're all on lockdown. But when you know people that are dying and people that are sick and you're in New York and people are in the streets and, the food stores are completely jam-packed and people are fighting and, it just kind of creates this other sense of urgency and fear and, just kind of unsettling that I'm not experiencing myself firsthand. But it's just hard to kind of know that these things are happening.
Well, and I think especially like that they're happening, period, right? But then when you're hearing those stories from people that you love.
Exactly. That's what makes it really challenging and difficult to kind of just listen. And I think, and that's been another difficult thing to kind of help communicate the severity of it to my family because we're so we're poor. We've been poor our whole lives and we've always been kind of living in these situations where we don't have much. And so, we don't have any savings. I don't have any stocks. And so when that stuff happens, it doesn't affect me because I don't know about it, right? It's not something that my family or that I was born with. And so for us, it doesn't really have the same effect because we're poor people, right? But this is different, right? This is one of those things that doesn't matter who you are, how much wealth you have or privilege or whatever. It's it doesn't discriminate. And that's the scary part, right? And how do you communicate that to your family to say, well, this is different. This is not one of those things that won't affect you. It actually will. And we actually have an opportunity to kind of protect ourselves by complying with, the stay-at-home order and just simply washing your hands. I mean, something so basic and not convening. And so I was laughing because earlier I got a text message from my sister-in-law. She was like, oh, we're having game night. And we thought of my mom's house, right? And I'm just like, I'm not going. I was like, I love my mom and I love you guys. And I'm worried for her because she has, you know, she suffers from bronchitis and she gets pneumonia. Like every time she gets the flu, she gets pneumonia. She gets really sick. And so I'm like, no, I love her too much that I'm not going to see you guys until this kind of, you know, blows over. But it's kind of hard getting people to understand the severity of that. So
how are you making it through?
Good question. So I think for me, the biggest tool that I've really been leaning into has been my journaling process. I journal, I art journal, I do all kinds of kind of creative things. I'm not an artist by any means, or I'm not.
Do you have your journal there so we can see it?
I actually do. I have a few.
Come on.
So
I want to see.
What's that?
I want to see. A ver.
Yeah, so this is like, it's kind of funny. So I walk around with, let me see. Oh, so this is my wallet, right? So I turned my wallet, my journal actually into a wallet because I just rather carry it with me.
Cash and your cards?
Yeah, so I have everything in here. And this totally keeps me sane because I go in here and then I'm very like creative with it. So I like to just decorate everything and kind of make it my own. So all of these things, this is just my calendar. So these are all things that like I kind of fill in. You know, there's picture of Krishna. There's, you know, my February, you know, that was my birthday. So it's all love you, you know.
Did you draw that?
I'm sorry?
Did you draw that, the I love you?
They're like stickers and like different type of thing. And something, you know, I write in there and I draw and I color like that. But that's how I kind of keep myself busy. And I just kind of like to reflect on stuff and capture moments that are special. And that way it kind of helps me like document kind of not only the people that I love in my life and who I spend my time with, but it's a helpful way to kind of remember. Like, so this is stuff like in New York where I was like with my friend Juanis and other friends, you know, we're just kind of like out and about. These are coworkers of mine. And, you know, a thing that I went to Alabama for this thing. And these are my friends that I talk to often and kind of like that. And so I kind of journal and I have like my experiences all kind of written down. And that has really helped me kind of think about just being well, right? And kind of taking care of myself. It helps me process emotions. And yeah, journaling has been a lifesaver for me. And so I've done a lot of work around that and it's been really helpful. It's helped me kind of stay present and stay kind of aware of myself and aware of my feelings.
When I'm looking down, I take notes.
Yeah,
so,
that's fine.
Just so you know, because I was over here. Yeah. So one of the first things you said when you talked about your journals, you were like, I'm not creative. And that, so there's part of that, that's a thing, right? Like
right.
That claimed you were like, I'm not an artist, I'm not creative.
Yeah.
How did you make the decision to, like, how did that come to you? Because that is extremely creative and that is extremely artistic. But how did you accept that that's what you needed to do?
Because, okay, so the way it started was I've always journaled. And so I've had, like, since I was little, all these journals that I have, and I've never completed them. They're always kind of half, right? And I wondered, why don't I finish them? And the reason why was because I would write everything down, like everything. Like today I woke up and it just was like, I'm never going to finish. And so I got to a point where it was like, I can't spend my whole day writing everything I'm doing. So I have to find a new way of documenting and kind of processing kind of what I'm going through. And so I actually started looking into different ways of how people journal and like what people do and kind of more systematically so that it could be an effective tool. I could still do it, but it doesn't have to take and bog down my whole day. And also I wanted it to be something I enjoy and it wasn't kind of like another thing on my to-do list, right? And so that's when I started looking at different forms of journaling. And there's so many kinds. I mean, there's journaling where you can do like daily reflections, but there's also like this whole thing in the journaling world. Like, are you a journaler or a documenter, right? So do you document your life or do you reflect on your life? Or are you a planner, right? And so there's all these different things like, well, or are you all of it, right? And what does that look like? And so I kind of went and dove into this world of like how people do that. And what I discovered was there's no right or wrong way of doing it at all. And so you could draw a line and say, I'm happy today, and that's it, right? Or you could do like a couple scribbles and say, today sucked, or whatever, and that could be your process. But so that's kind of how I arrived there. And I said, you know what, let me do something where I can incorporate photos, Because sometimes I don't want to write anything. Sometimes I just want to say, look, this is what it was, and that's it. That's it. It's beautiful in itself. Sometimes I want to draw a photo or whatever, or I just kind of scribble. And I say I'm not artistic because I can't physically draw. So I'm teaching myself how to do that now. And that's another part of a way of kind of developing and kind of keeping myself focused on positive kind of things that are helpful for my mental health and my well-being, but also look pretty, and I could share them with people, you know?
What a beautiful way to both reflect and document and plan your life, like all of it. And what I love about it, because I like when you started explaining all the different ways, I immediately thought like it could be whatever you want. It's just it's just you. It's almost like you only do what you know, right? So like going to that rabbit hole of the journaling world, it's like, oh wow, like I could do that. So it's more like learning and like acquiring and seeing what fits you. That is
you
really
can do whatever you want. Yeah, you could do whatever you want. And you know, one of the things, and I did a little bit of research, and one of the things that I learned, and I'll be brief, but this is kind of a longer discussion, but it really has. Oh, good. Okay.
Whatever you need.
So
for you.
It has to do with, and I'm sharing this because I think it may be helpful for people. I know it was helpful for me when I learned about this, but so there's this woman researcher, and I'll find the name and kind of get that to you later, but she did this study on whether or not, on self-awareness, right? And so what they were trying to identify was like, are people who are self-aware more happy, more in tune, more at peace with the past, more at peace with the present? Are they more in control of their life? All these things, right? All the things that we all aspire to be in some way. And what they found was that people who identified as being self-aware were actually more depressed, more not in control of their life as per their own kind of criteria as how they wanted to be. And they had a lot of issues with dealing with the past. It was like they were living in the past. And she was perplexed because she was like, this doesn't make sense. How is it that these people who are so reflective and always thinking about how they can better themselves, so sad or so depressed? And what they found was that there were two camps, right? And what they found was the questions that they were asking and how they reflected was the issue. And so let me give you an example. So the people that reflected and spoke, asked themselves why, were living in the past. So it was this idea of like, why did this happen to me? Why was I so sad? Why did she hurt my feelings? Why, these sorts of questions that in reality, you're never going to know. You're never going to know.
So like a lot of the studies a lot of the things, it's depression is you being stuck in the past. Anxiety is being worried about the future. It's connected to like to the negative, like the negative thinking around it. Okay, so sorry, keep going.
And so what they identified though, and so then they found in the same study, they realized when they did all the research and kind of did all the all the analysis of it, they realized that what was the difference between people who were more successful as opposed to not successful, or more productive in their self-awareness, was the questions that they asked. And so the ones that were not, and who also classified themselves as being self-aware, asked themselves why. But the other people asked themselves what. So it was not, why did I feel that way? It was, what was it about that experience that created these feelings? And what other experiences have I had that also gave me these feelings? And what do those things have in common? Right? So it became more of an actual what happened, who, what, when, where, why, and an analysis of what I learned. And there's this whole like thing I can send you. It's called the Gibbs cycle of reflection. And it's really cool because it kind of outlines steps and questions that that you can actually go through to help you kind of methodically kind of go through it. And what they found was that those people who used the what as opposed to the why were happier, more successful, more self-confident, all this stuff. It was pretty fascinating. And so when I saw that, I was like, you know what? I need to do that. Like, I need to shift from the why to the what, because the why is going to send you into that downward spiral where you just are never really going to know. You're going to be chasing your tail, basically. And why not kind of ask yourself what, and what can I learn from this? And then how can I do things differently to not experience this again? And that was kind of where the growth is. And so I'm incorporating that into my journaling practice.
I don't know
Yeah.
if you remember this, but so Otto and I used to work together.
Yeah.
And I remember being in my office and me asking that why. Like I don't know if you remember, but
I don't remember.
I remember feeling really stuck because I couldn't understand why certain things were happening. Like
Yes. Yes, I remember now.
could not wrap, like I couldn't, and it really part of what that entire experience taught me was exactly what you're talking about. Like at some point the why doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
And I had to get out of the why in order to like focus on the what. Like what is that experience teaching me? What are the things that, you know, I learned about myself? What are the things that I learned about others, that I learned about the world? But I remember it, and I felt tortured being stuck in that why, because I could not, it just, I couldn't get it. But it took going through that experience, which really and honestly was one of the darkest times.
Yeah, I remember.
Of
I remember.
and it's funny because I think that, and then, you know, since that I've had a lot of stuff happen with my family, specifically my kids, that I think that situation helped prepare me for that, because like I thought I was heartbroken, and then I really like almost had my heart, you know, like so there's a lot of gratitude for that, but I remember the torture of being stuck in that.
Yeah, it's torturous. And you know, mental health is one of those things that I'm happy that I'm starting to hear more conversations around mental health. You know, I have a brother who's severely who has severe mental health issues, and we all do, I think, in some capacity, right? And it's heartbreaking and heart-wrenching to kind of see that, but it's also like, you know, less dramatic mental health, these things that you're talking about, where it's like how we beat ourselves up, right? When we are stuck in that dark place, and how hard it is to really get out of that. And so I think it's so awesome that you're providing this outlet and this venue, right, to have these conversations so that we can talk the real, you know, talk about what's really happening and how it affects, how detrimental it can be, but also not from a negative place, but how beautiful it can be in terms of a journey, right? Because I can also, you know, reference times in my life where I have felt like that. And I feel like those are the most miserable times. But when you are able to kind of move over, go over, kind of push through that, you find out that you are stronger than you thought, you know, smarter than you thought, more capable than you thought, all these things. And it's just, it's so good. It's like you have to kind of go through that in a sense. But having the tools to kind of weather that, I think, is also really important.
So what are some of those tools?
Well, like I said, for me, the tools that I've gravitated to has been my journaling practice. It's really important. I mean, I love stationery, so I'm like that nerd that goes to the office supply store when I'm having a down day, and I just roam the aisles and look at all the Post-its. And so I got into like Japanese stationery, which is amazing. But so there's kind of like a fun side to it, but there's also like, I think the more reflective part, because I do want to be a better person. I mean, I went to this leadership training that I had gone to for some time. And one of the things that they made us do was they had us do like, a values assessment, but a calculator on our life, right? And so what they did was like, okay, men generally live until this age. So let's just say 80, right? I'm 45 now. So I have from 40, and we did like a backward, like one of those counters where it's just like, you know, second by second by second. You're just thinking the clock is ticking. Like, I'm not going to be here. You know, if I live to that age, if I'm lucky to live to that age, right? This is all the time I have left. Like, where do I want to spend my time? Like, what do I want to do, right? Do I want to make a difference? Do I not want to make a difference? You know, what role do I want to play? Who do I want to be? And so I think that was really important, because that kind of puts it into perspective. So, you know what? This is a gift. Like, every day is a gift. And if we're able to kind of do the best that we can, then why aren't we working towards that, you know? And I don't know. So for me, the tool has been helping me process my my stuff, like how people say, I'm in my feelings, right? So this is all like my feelings right here, right? This is all of it, and there's more of it. But there's also like, what comes out of that is being accountable to myself, you know? And when you start asking yourself, what, you become accountable, because it's like, what can I do differently, right? It puts the onus on you. And that's something that people struggle with, you know? And I've talked to many people about stuff that's going on, and they're always like, it's like this victim mentality, right? Like, this happened to me, or this, you know, because of them, because of it. No. Like, yes, stuff does happen, but what was your part in it? You know, and I think that's when you start to say, oh, damn, like, I did have a part in that, or like, how could I have behaved differently, or how could I have done that in another way, right? And that's tough, right? It's like looking in the mirror and really seeing yourself.
A really good friend of ours, she was on the show, I think maybe my first week, Leticia Casares.
Yeah. I saw that interview. Awesome.
She's so amazing.
Yeah.
She had offered this question during a reflection exercise that we did. She had this Soul Sister retreat. She's only done it once. And I had the opportunity to go. I think there were like maybe 5 of us, 5 women there at her house. And we had this carga ceremony. So like where she had us write and like do a release of something that we had been carrying that had been, you know, stopping our growth and our development. And I think I might have talked about this, but I'm gonna talk about it again. And one of the things that I really, and I had spent decades trying to let go was really let go of my daughter's biological father. Because he pretty much like left, pretty much abandoned the kids. And so it was very hard on my older daughter, but so you know, Daniel, my husband, adopted them, but as they got older, there was always this void, especially with my older daughter. And then when they would like get into their travesuras, when they would start, you know, doing things that were really like, when they were, you know, putting themselves in situations that were harmful, I would feel a lot of anger and resentment towards him. And it was like this constant thing for all of those years. And so like, if they were hurt, like, so in doing this work and this writing about really wanting to release him, she asked this question. She asked, so now I want you to think, how has holding on served you?
Yeah. You asked me that one time. You asked me that same question, and oh my God, that messed me up in a good way. Because I was like, oh damn, like I'm playing into this. I'm totally like playing. It's like I hate to love you, right? It's like,
well, because then like I had to own, like there's a piece of me that's playing a victim here. Because I had to release having somebody to blame.
Yeah.
He was my perfect scapegoat. He wasn't around.
He couldn't defend himself.
Like, he was gone with the wind. And you know, like and when my children found him and connected with him, very harmful, unfortunately. But it was like I had somebody to blame. And you know what? I also turned out like I could take credit for being the good one that stayed.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So there's, and that's like a victim, there's a little bit of martyrdom in there.
Yeah.
And so part of what I realized was, you know what, dude? I was like, okay, lady, he hasn't been around to raise these girls.
Yeah.
So part of their struggle, so number one, like part of their struggle you got to own, but also they have to own it.
Yeah.
So like giving them the responsibility for their decisions and their choices regardless. And
that's huge. And liberating.
Absolutely.
Liberating.
But all of this is part of what you were talking about. That's part of the what.
It's part of the what.
Having to ask that question, how has that behavior served you? So you tell me, what did that question teach you about yourself?
I'm pulling up some of the questions just to also share those as we're doing this. But how did it? Well, I'm sorry. What was your question again? How did it?
That question.
What did I learn?
Whatever served you. So whatever was going on.
Yeah, that question. I remember you asked me that question, and it really messed me up because I think up until that point, I thought I had it all figured out. You know, and this is the thing. This is the tricks that our minds play on us, right? It's like I had it all figured out, kind of like you're saying. And
the tricks keep us safe.
Yeah. And I was like, holy crap. It made me feel initially, I remember you asked me, and I don't think I shared with you because I was like, it was.
And you didn't call me for a while after that.
I was like, oh crap, I need to think about this. But what ended up happening was it was this whole thought process around like, holy crap, like, I love this. Like, there's a sense of like, like martyrdom, right? Like, I'm crucifying, what is it, Opus, and not to be offensive, but like, I get this image of Opus Dei, right? Where I'm like like flogging myself. And as much as I'm complaining about it, like, I loved it. I loved, yes. Like this sense of like, and kind of finding comfort in that. And then realizing how unhealthy that is, you know? Because you're right. It's almost like, that's my excuse, that's my scapegoat, right? And it helped me kind of realize, you know what? Like, I have a role in this.
Yeah.
But not only do I have a role in it, others do too. Mm-hmm. And so on top of being the victim, it's like I was owning all of it. Mm-hmm. And a very wise person told me this, and I'm never going to forget this. Yeah, that question that you asked me, how's this serving you? And this other question was, or other observation was this. Basically what this person told me was, you are behaving, you've appointed yourself, you've kind of assumed this role of the liver, and you're metabolizing all the toxins that aren't even yours. But you become kind of this, you've become this thing, this person that does this, and your body can no longer do it anymore. Mm-hmm. Like, so it's coming down. Like this whole thing is coming down.
Part of that thing that people have, right? When they take on responsibility, they take on others, they take on, because I can do it. I'm the strong one in my family. I'm the rock of my family. I can do it. And there's a little bit of that saviorism, there, right? And at the risk of your health. At the risk of your health. I had another friend ask, he was asking me all these questions, and I was saying, well, I'm the one that has to this. I'm the one that, it was started like that, right? And he was like, who pointed you that? Like, nobody asked you. Like, and the more I thought about it, I was like, wait a minute. I want to see the minutes from the vote.
And that was so my friend. And I was like, oh my God, he's so right. My mom, I love her to death. She's like my angel, my pillar. She's never pressured me. She's never told me you have to A, B, and C. And the only thing she's asked me to be is happy and responsible, and to handle my stuff so it wouldn't be a burden on her. Right. Handle your stuff and then be happy and be happy. She's never asked me to like support the family financially or like all these things, right, that I put on myself. Like I had to do this, and never once. My brothers, never have they come to me and ask. But I felt somehow I appointed myself, without them even knowing, this list of responsibilities and criteria that I had to fulfill, right? And it's all ego. It's all ego. It's all me thinking I have to be the one because I have a formal education. Oh, I went to Berkeley. I have a master, or whatever. It's like,
would you say, where'd you go? How long have we been in the conversation? How long did that take to come out?
You know what I'm saying? But it's that idea of like, oh, I have all this street cred, right? So that positions me in this place to be able to, And you know what? Let me tell you this. I have learned I have been schooled by the most humblest people who don't have a formal education, but have so much knowledge that it just floors you. And to me, it's like these titles, and not to kind of say that they're not important, because there's, they do have merit and value and all that, but it's not about that, right? It's about how you walk in the world and who you are. And I think it's hard. I don't know why it's so hard to kind of be who you are when you have all these self-imposed expectations, and I think that's another thing that this process has helped me kind of understand is, what are those expectations, and whose expectations am I trying to meet, right? Mine or someone else's? And why are they in my list of expectations? Like, what is that about, So there's really a lot. I mean, I don't want to get all like fuzzy, but like there's so much that comes out of a process where you're constantly asking yourself, what happened? What can I learn from this? And how can I grow from it? And that sort of stuff. And, keeping it basic and simple, but it's not easy stuff. It's really hard. But I think everyone has the capacity to do that. And I think everyone does it. It's just people's comfort in sharing, you know, kind of opening up, which is, you know.
And I do think though that this work is hard, and it's going to be very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And really having to, and it's painful.
Yeah.
And like to choose to go through the pain and the discomfort, and really like with the hope that you're going to be okay, with the hope that you're going to come out on the other side better, stronger, healthier, like with the hope of that, but really not knowing how long the journey is going to be. So it's like choose, and you know, like some people just choose not to, and really like that's part of their journey, right? But it's hard.
Right.
It takes a lot of courage to do this work, and to ask yourselves these questions, and to look at what you're talking about, like number one, reflect, what are the expectations, like why is this, like what, and well then why do I feel that way, like who, like you were saying, like who appointed me as that? Oh.
Where's my crown? It's like,
well, and like the ego likes to think it's very humble. The ego to trick us into thinking that we're being humble. This is so in your work, the journaling has been a part of it, but is it just the journaling, or are there other things that have really helped you in this process?
Well, so the journaling is obviously like a big part of it, but I mean, it's also like my spiritual background, right? And so I converted to Hinduism as an adult, and that process was extremely eye-opening, and it kind of helped me understand my relationship with God, you know, and kind of with this understanding of another being. And people call it whatever they want, and that's kind of what I like about Hinduism. It's that, you know, they accept any form of God is God, right? And so however you want to call it, like it's the same energy. And so and I love that, this idea of like of it being this energy, right, that we can all tap into and all have access to. It's just waiting for you to be like, here it is, come, you know, have it. It's for you, and it's endless. And so I think that kind of background helped me kind of resolve my issues with the church, and because I was raised Catholic and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, it really helped me kind of have a strong foundation in my faith. And, you know, obviously everyone is, you know, can choose whatever path it feels right to them. And for me, this is the path that worked for me. But I traveled to India several times with a group of folks who are just angels on earth. I mean, I cannot I met the most amazing, beautiful people through a temple that I'm affiliated with, and traveled to India and met some amazing people, some of which, who I mentioned earlier, just like meeting people with so much knowledge and generosity in terms of giving this knowledge and sharing it with no expectation of anything in return. I mean, it's just, I learned so many valuable lessons about other ways of living and other ways of being, you know, that maybe we don't see as much in this country, or we don't see as much, right? It's like when you see it at that level everywhere, you're kind of like, wow, there's another way. We can do this another way. There's other ways of living, right? And so that really helped me. So I think the spiritual foundation, and then also the journaling. And then one thing my mom taught me was, you know, my mom is so amazing, but she has so much knowledge, and she taught me at a very early age, you know, to never be afraid of or intimidated by money or by access. Like, go. If that's what you want, then you go. In fact, when I moved to New York recently, she was really sad that I was leaving. And one of the things she told me was like, if there's anything I want more for you, is to be happy and to be successful in what you do. And if leaving is part of that, then I need you to go and do that. You know, I mean, this is my mom, right? And like, you know, holding back the tears and all that, but it's like, she taught me that from a very early age. And you know, she didn't have money to send me to school, so I filled out all the applications, all that stuff I did on my own. And she would just sign because she didn't know. And so But she told me that. She was like, never let money or any barriers get in your way. Like, those are barriers that are there, but there's always a way. And that really helped me, that kind of like strong, like, I believe her, you know, because when it's never failed me, like every time I've been that afraid to do something, I remember her voice and I remember her telling me this. And it's almost like a soothing, like, all right, I got this. She told me, and she's never been wrong, you know, about these sorts of things. And it's just been a very strong kind of foundation.
What an absolute blessing to have the relationship that you have with your mother, and to have the mother that you have, you know, because that is definitely the foundation. And as a child, to have somebody that believes in you that way, that doesn't, you know, sometimes some people's pain as parents causes them to stop their children from growing, like in fear, right? But your mom was like, I want you to fly, little birdie. I don't know to tell you to go, but you're going to figure it out. And I know that you can do it.
Yeah. And, you know, I'll share with this one other thing. I don't want to get too like religious or spiritual, but it's part of kind of my story,
okay.
right?
It is okay.
It's open.
You are in a super safe space. So whatever way you need to go, where we go.
So check it out. So when I converted to Hinduism, I was really scared. I didn't know, like, not really scared, but a little like concerned about like how my mom was going to respond to it. And I took her to the temple once because I just was feeling it out still. I wanted to see what she would say. I was seeking her approval, right? I never really admitted that until right now, but that's what it was. It was about me like making sure she was all right with it before I could proceed, right? Because if she kind of felt like, then I would have taken that as a cue for maybe, you know, think about this more. But I took her to the temple and she was just like looking around in her eyes. I need them. They bowed down all the way to the ground, you know? She was like making all these observations, which I was just kind of like, yeah, it's just different. And then when we left, and she didn't say anything throughout, she was just kind of, oh, wow, just taking it all in, right? And then when we left, she said this, and I'm never going to forget, but she said, look how beautiful and great God is. He gives us so many opportunities to love him. And I was just like, are you like a yogi that, you know, descended from the Himalayas? Like, who is this woman? Like, I mean, I am so blessed, you know, to have that. And I know people don't all have that. And so that's why I'm even more like, just humbled, you know, like, I don't know. It was really, it's really helpful to my personal development, you know, to know that I have someone in my corner that believes in me in that way, you know, and just is so supportive regardless of what I do, you know, as long as I'm not hurting someone, as long as I'm not like, you know, as long as it's coming from a place of love and I'm a better person at the end of it, then wow, what more could you ask for, you know?
It's not just having a person, like it's having your mom.
Yeah.
Like your mom, the person that te dio luz, like that brought you into this world, that gave you birth to love you in that way, and to see the world in that way, without judgment.
Yeah.
You know, like she's not judging, she's loving.
Yeah.
What a blessing.
And you know, when right, and which is another lesson, right? Like when you so another part of the journaling, kind of to loop that into this conversation, because it's helped me kind of frame how also I communicate and talk with others, right? And so it's also helped me reflect on how I demonstrate my love, right? And so I was having a conversation with someone around this COVID-19 thing, and they were saying, well, I don't know, and they were kind of ranting around like why don't they understand? And I'm just going to tell them la 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 la. And I said, okay, yes, you can tell them that, but if I may make a suggestion, it's like, do you want to be right or do you want to be effective? Like, do you want to change the behavior? Then how can you approach it in a loving way where there's compassion in what you're asking, right? And so it was this thing around like, you're being selfish if you're going out without a mask and you're not complying and all this thing, you're being selfish and blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, you are, but how do you change? I mean, that's never been effective. If someone comes at you and they're like, you selfish, la, 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 whatever, like, what's the first thing you're going to do? I mean, on the real, you're going to be like, whatever. You know what I'm saying? But it's not welcoming. It's not embracing you, right? It's not helping you. It's more like, oh, what a jerk. Why is he all up in my business or whatever, right? But it's around, how do I reframe the question or reframe how I'm communicating that so that it's coming from a loving place and perhaps more impactful, right? So like, you love your mother, don't you? Like, you love your grandma, don't you? It's like, what a way to show her by protecting her, because you want her to be around longer. And so how do we do that, right? And how do we have the conversation where you're accomplishing the same goal, but it's not coming from this like judgmental kind of hateful or angry place, right? Not necessarily hateful, but angry, right? And so that was helpful. So it's helped me kind of think about how I want to say things and how I want to, what my intention is. Mm-hmm. And when I understand my intention, then I'm able to reframe how I say it, so that I'm more effective and it's more loving. And people kind of come to you and be like, oh, okay, I got your point. Hey, I did what we talked about or whatever. It worked or whatever. And so it's kind of, you start seeing different results. And to me, that's the goal, right? To have people safe and happy and feeling loved. And so
I am so grateful that we finally had everything work out to have this conversation, because I just as always, I love any time that I get with you. But I think that the practice of the journaling and the practice of like using it as like this active reflection, and also like the documentation, like I loved all of it. And just this really beautiful conversation about your mom and the way that we approach others, like how we approach things that we are not agreeing with or that we're not liking, like how are we approaching people and approaching them with love. So before we go, do you have any last words to share?
I want to thank you so much for, you have been such a blessing in my life. And I've received your card. I love it. With the sun, I have it. I don't know, just so thankful and grateful for us having crossed paths and for this work that you're doing. I'm just proud, not in a like, oh, I'm so proud of you, but like proud to be like, that's my homegirl, like, that's Marisol, like I know her, she's doing great work, and it's so important. And you're such a blessing, and I just really want to thank you for all the work that you're doing in the National Parents Union, for creating this space, right? So important. When you first told me about it, I was like, what are we talking about? Whatever. What, like, not whatever, but like, it's open. And I was like, that is so cool. It's like, I didn't have to plan or anything. I just be myself and talk about like my, what I do. And hopefully it's helpful to someone, and they find value in that. And so I'm just so thankful for the opportunity and for being connected. And for everyone who's, struggling right now with like mental health, just, hopefully if there's any of these tools, I'll send you actually some information along with I referenced the study. So there's a TED Talk. So I'll send you information so that people have that available along with the questions for reflection. That way people have.
When this gets recorded, I'll make sure that I'll see if I can attach them to the Facebook link.
Yeah, it'll be helpful. Just so people have resources. A lot of times it's like, you don't know where to look. They're there, use some of it, half of it, however you want. Really be well and do what you need to do to find that happy place and to be the best version of yourself possible is, I think, what I'd like to end with. So
thank you so much. Thank you for spending Friday night with us. I don't know when this is going to get aired, but I'm sure
okay. All right, cool.
Good night, everybody. Thank you for joining
Bye.
and watching our recording. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.